Exposed, terrifying summer camp stories of 30 haunted encounters and sinister secrets. Rebecca could feel the weight of the town's dark history hanging over the summer camp like an ominous cloud. The whispers of lost souls echoed among the towering trees, and a chill settled deep within her bones. How could a place so picturesque be intertwined with such horror? As she pulled into the gravel lot, Jake and Lily bounced with excitement, oblivious to the eerie legends that plagued their new adventure. But Rebecca's heart raced. Something didn't feel right. Every step they took sent shivers down her spine. Memories of the haunting tales murmured in hushed voices around town filled her mind, the unexplained disappearances, the flicker of lights in the woods, and that young camper who had vanished 2 decades ago. What kind of monsters lurked in the shadows? Had those legends taken root in the very soil they stood on? As they unloaded the car, Jake's eyes darted toward the dark thicket bordering the camp. He seemed entranced. "Mom, can we explore over there?" he asked, pointing to the rustling trees. "Not yet, honey," she replied, trying to rein in the unease creeping up on her. Later, at the campfire, Lily sat wide-eyed listening to the counselors spin spine-chilling tales under the flickering flames. They painted pictures of malevolent spirits and sad shadows flitting through the woods. Rebecca could see the excitement in Lily's gaze, but fear trickled through her own veins like ice. "There's nothing to be afraid of, right?" she murmured to herself. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake started showing signs of a different mindset. Once eager to make friends, he'd zone out, staring into the woods as if listening for voices just beyond the trees. "Jake?" Rebecca prompted one evening, seeing his gaze latch onto something unseen. "What do you see?" He blinked, visibly startled. "Nothing," he mumbled, yet the weight of something unspoken lingered. Tom, the lead counselor, oozed charm but had an unsettling intensity when he looked at her children. He'd laugh easily, but there was an unquenchable ferocity behind his smile. Why did he seem to watch them so closely? The finer details of the camp-weathered signs, thick underbrush began to constrict like a noose around her thoughts. Days blurred into one another, and panic unfurled as Jake's behavior shifted further. Then, one afternoon, Lily's backpack vanished from their tent. The air crackled with tension when whispers of the missing bag turned into hushed murmurs among the counselors. Was this how it started, a soft warning masked as innocence? As night cloaked the camp, Rebecca's dread deepened, laughter echoed unexpectedly through the trees, sending her heart racing. The folklore, the past, it was all slipping from legend to palpable terror. What would she uncover next? What secrets lay in the shadows? With the camp's grand finale approaching, Rebecca knew she had to act. The chance to uncover the truth before it swallowed them whole throbbed like a heartbeat. But could she protect her children from a fate they didn't even know lurked in the woods? In that moment, as shadows danced under the moonlight, Rebecca felt the weight of history closing in. Would she find the light, or would the darkness engulf them all? The forest seemed to hold its breath, awaiting her next move. The days crept by, each one laden with an impending sense of dread that wrapped around Rebecca like the claustrophobic embrace of thick fog. As the camp's grand finale drew near, the atmosphere shimmered with excitement, a peculiar contrast to the gnawing anxiety eating away at her. While Jake and Lily joined their friends, frolicking in games and laughter, Rebecca kept herself rooted, her eyes scanning the darkened borders of the woods. The missing backpack was just the tip of a growing iceberg, but no one else seemed to share her apprehension. The counselors laughed it off, spinning more tales by the campfire as if to distract the children from the uneasiness that threatened to claw its way to the surface. But tonight, Rebecca could sense a shift in the air. The forest wasn't merely breathing, it was alive, tinged with a sentience that sent chills racing through her spine. "Can we explore the woods tonight?" Jake asked, peering at Rebecca with those wide, innocent eyes that she had always trusted. It was a simple question, but it felt like a trap. The trees whispered, secrets dripping like poison from their gnarled branches. "Let's stay close to camp," she said, trying to inject warmth into her resolve. Jake's brow furrowed slightly, but he nodded, the glimmer of curiosity still alive in his usually lively spirit. Something deep inside Rebecca clenched painfully as she caught Tom's gaze from across the fire. He was watching them, his smile razor-sharp, revealing a hint of something darker just beneath the surface. As the sun dipped below the horizon, darkness flooded the camp, but the children remained raucous, their laughter bouncing off the trees as they prepared for the night's festivities. It was during one of these merry moments that Rebecca decided to investigate further. She slipped away from the bonfire, moving toward the edge of the tree line, the nervous excitement of dread sculpting her heartbeat into a frantic rhythm. The moment she stepped beneath the canopy, all sound fell away. The laughter of the campers faded into a hollow echo. In the quiet, she felt a presence, a weight looming just out of view. The trees seemed to whisper secrets to the night, twisting and turning, beckoning her deeper. Something unnatural stirred, pulling at her instinct. "Jake," she called out when she realized he wasn't by the campfire. Her voice trembled, bouncing back to her as if swallowed by the darkness. Panic clawed at her throat. She rushed further into the woods, stepping over roots and through the dense underbrush, her heart a wild drumbeat against her ribs. Then she heard it, a soft sobbing. It was faint but insistent, calling to her through the thick air, twisting her insides with its chilling familiarity. "Jake," she whispered, urgency lacing her tone. The sobbing stopped, leaving a suffocating silence behind. Suddenly, a flash of light flickered deep among the trees, illuminating fleeting shadows that darted between the trunks. Rebecca's breath hitched as she hesitated, caught in the pull of curiosity and fear. What was that? She thought, feeling a ripple of dread rush through her as she glanced back toward the campfire, now a mere speck against the dark backdrop of the woods. Just then, she spotted a figure in the distance, standing perfectly still beneath a swathe of ghostly moonlight, too still. It was a child, their face obscured by shadow, but the essence of familiarity crawled under her skin. "Jake?" She breathed out, stepping closer, aching to bridge the chasm of instinct that told her to run. The figure turned, revealing a face marked with unnatural pallor, eyes wide and devoid of the familiar spark she knew. An overwhelming sense of wrongness rippled through her. And just like that, the child's mouth opened in a wordless scream, breaking the stillness. Rebecca stumbled backward, her heart pounding in her ears, the darkness now a living, breathing entity ready to swallow her whole. Where was Jake? What was she facing in the shadows? The urgency swirled around her as she spun to flee, but what confronted her next? Was a question echoing in the void. Would she escape the wood's grip, or would they claim her family forever? Rebecca's feet pounded against the forest floor, branches snagging at her clothes as she navigated the underbrush. Panic surged through her veins, blinding her to everything but the desperate need to escape. She risked a glance behind her, her breath catching as she saw the pale figure still standing, frozen in the moonlight. Its presence sent a shiver racing down her spine, and she tried to quiet the terror coursing through her mind. "Jake! Jake!" She gasped, each call becoming more frantic. The silhouette remained, its mouth gaping, the scream still echoing in her ears. She was running in circles, heart thundering, every shadow around her looming like a malicious predator. Suddenly, sharp laughter cut through the stillness, shrill and unnatural. It wasn't just kids' laughter, it was twisted, like something was mocking her. The air crackled with menace as if the woods delighted in her fear. Gripping her flashlight tightly, she flicked it on, the beam slicing through the suffocating darkness. "Where are you?" she cried, praying the light would illuminate Jake's familiar face. But the shadows danced menacingly around her, an invitation to despair. She stumbled through the thicket, branches scratching at her skin like the claws of something unseen. Then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. A group of kids had emerged from the trees, faces contorted in expressions of terror. They stumbled backward, eyes wide, as if they had seen something no one should. "Help us!" one of them shouted. "Run! It's coming!" The chill in her bones intensified as she turned to face the woods from which they came. Her heart raced faster, pounding out warnings, but she was frozen, paralyzed by the madness coiling around her mind. A memory flashed, Tom's whispers from earlier, half lost in the fog of her thoughts. "You've got to see it once you're in, there's no going back. No going back." The phrase tangled in her chest, squeezing until she found her voice. "What do you mean?" she demanded, gripping the flashlight like a lifeline. "The game, it takes what you love most." Another child blurted out, tears streaming down her cheeks, smudging the dirt on her face. "Your brother, he's part of it now. Stop it. Stop it." Rebecca yelled, heart racing with dread. "Jake is not a part of anything." But their haunted eyes told her otherwise. Behind them, the trees shifted ominously. A low growl rumbled in the distance, a promise that something was awakening. It came from deep within the forest, closer, almost playful, like it was anticipating the hunt. Rebecca shot her gaze back to the shadows, her mind racing. Tom had seemed so inviting, his smile so sharp. But now she understood the make-believe stories were only a thin veil over dark desires, feeding off the fear of the children, capturing them like moths in a spider's web. "Jake!" she shouted again, voice cracking. "I'm coming for you." She turned and pushed past the frightened children, the disappearing laughter echoing in her ears. Another scream split the air, but this one wasn't a wordless shriek, it was Jake's voice, full of panic. Every instinct screamed for her to flee, but all she could think of was reaching him. She barreled into the shadows again, desperate to find Jake, diving deeper into the monstrous darkness. But with every step, the reality around her twisted. As the trees closed in, she sensed a looming dread, like they were judging her, waiting for her to falter. "Rebecca!" The voice slithered through the trees, slipping into her mind like a tarantula, wrapping around her thoughts. It was an echo, familiar and warped. "Help me!" She stumbled to a stop, breathless, vision swimming. "Jake?" she choked. From deep within the woods, the unmistakable sound of rustling leaves surrounded her, an army of whispers closing in. Would she reach Jake before the forest swallowed them whole? Or was something else waiting in the dark, something far worse than she could imagine? The darkness thickened as Rebecca stood frozen, grappling with the dread festering in her gut. The air was heavy, thick like molasses, and each gasp of breath felt like it could be her last. Overhead, the canopy of the trees seemed to loom closer, branches twisting into grotesque shapes, fingers reaching down to ensnare her. "Jake!" she called again, more urgently this time. The desperation in her voice bounced off the trunks, swallowed by the overwhelming silence that followed. Each beat of her heart pounded in her ears, nearly drowning out the faint reply that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Rebecca, help!" His voice slithered through the air, a serpentine whisper. It echoed around her, teasing, mocking her growing sense of helplessness. It wasn't just the sound of her brother's voice, it was the sound of a trap being set. She stumbled forward, flashlight flickering. The beam danced around her, illuminating the jagged rocks and gnarled roots that seemed to rear up like serpents ready to strike. Every sound filled her with dread. Twigs snapped underfoot, echoes of her own footsteps taunted her, reminding her just how alone she felt in the vast, unfeeling wilderness. Suddenly, laughter erupted again, joyful, playful, but layered with something dark. The brutish sound resonated from the depths of the woods, a chorus of children, that sent her pulse racing. Were there others? Were they trapped here too? A shiver crept up her spine. Run! It's coming! The cry rang from a distance, the voice of a child she didn't recognize. And then it faded as quickly as it had come, swallowed by the sinister laughter that surrounded her. It was like the forest itself relished in her fear, an audience to her terror. Heart pounding against her chest, she clenched the flashlight tighter. "Jake!" she screamed, her voice raw. "I'm coming. Stay where you are." In response, rustling grew louder, more insistent. Shadows flitted between the trees, and a cold dread seeped into her bones. Something loomed in the dark, she could feel it tightening around her like a noose. Then, to her left, a silhouette emerged, stumbling through the underbrush. Rebecca froze, breath hitching in her throat. Was it a mirage or salvation? "Jake?" she whispered, voice trembling. As the figure stepped closer into the beam of her flashlight, her pulse quickened. It wasn't Jake. A boy, dirt-smeared and wide-eyed, his lips quivered as he merely pointed back towards the shadows. "It's coming," he gasped, his voice shaking. "You have to run, save yourself." Out of instinct, Rebecca wanted to comfort him, to assure him that everything would be okay. But she didn't have time. The air thickened, the silence broke as an unearthly growl erupted from behind the trees. It was a low, menacing sound that vibrated through her chest and settled in her stomach like a lead weight. The boy's expression shifted from terror to sheer panic. "It's here!" he screamed, darting into the trees, leaving her alone once again. Rebecca turned, instinct taking over. She sprinted deeper into the woods, branches whipping at her face, breath ragged as the howls of something unfathomable filled the air. She rounded a bend, and the ground dropped suddenly, and she slipped, tumbling down a small slope. As she landed in a clearing, the world spun around her. She blinked against the ground, breathless. But the clearing wasn't empty. It was littered with remnants of laughter, old toys, tattered shirts, shoes that looked untouched by time. Panic clawed at her throat as she recognized one of the items, a blue t-shirt. It was Jake's. The wind rustled the leaves overhead, and a heavy silence descended like a shroud, leaving an uneasy feeling that something was watching her. "Jake!" she shouted. "Please, answer me." But only the shadows moved in response, swirling with malevolence. What had Tom meant by no going back? In the depths of her mind, a dread realization filled her. Whatever this forest was, it didn't just trap its victims, it transformed them. Suddenly, the darkness around her shifted. Branches creaked ominously. She could sense it, something was coming. Time was running out. Could she truly save Jake, or was she already too late? The rustling grew closer. A figure loomed just beyond the tree line, its outline flickering like a broken reflection. Rebecca's heart raced. Whoever or whatever it was no friend. Would she face the figure in the shadows, break the curse, or fall prey to the forest's dark thirst for despair? The answer lay just out of reach, and she dared not look back. The figure in the shadows stepped forward, hesitating as if analyzing her. Rebecca's hands trembled, the flashlight flickering erratically in her grip. The beam landed on a face that was both familiar and grotesque, an unsettling blend of Jake and something else, something twisted. "Rebecca?" The voice was his, but it reverberated as if struggling to break free from a thick veil. "Help me, Jake!" she shouted, hope igniting in her chest. "What's happening? Where are you?" He raised a hand that trembled, pointing toward the darkness behind him. "It wants us. We need to go. Now." His eyes darted nervously, glistening like wet stones, betraying a terror that echoed her own. She felt as if the ground beneath them shuddered, waiting for something with teeth and claws to emerge from the shadows. A low growl rolled through the clearing like thunder, vibrating through her bones. The air thickened again, turning oppressive. Time lost its meaning, seconds stretched into agonizing infinity. "Jake, please." With a shuddering breath, he stepped forward, revealing more of himself to the light smudged with dirt, bruises decorating his arms. "I thought I lost you, then they found me." His voice dropped to a whisper. "We can't stay here." Rebecca's mind spun. Found? Who had found him? Were there others caught in this nightmare? "They take you, Rebecca." One at a time his voice shook, revealing the sincerity of his fear. "We can't let them get us." "No, no, no," she cried, backing away. There were others, children lost in these woods. Was this all a sick game? How many others had they taken? Suddenly, laughter erupted again, but this time, the sound was different, meaner, taunting. "You're too late," a chorus replied, echoing through the trees. Shadows twisted, darting around them, a whirlwind of malignant children who once played carefree, their innocence lost to darkness. "Run!" Rebecca screamed, instinct overriding her urge to reach for Jake. She darted back, eyes darting for another way out, but the laughter rang louder, mingling with the growls creeping from every direction. Something was moving, flitting between trees, circling closer. "Rebecca!" Jake's voice cracked, panic lacing his words. "We need to get to the others." "Others?" she gasped, adrenaline surging. "Where are they?" The shadows deepened, spinning around her, feeding off her fear. "They're just ahead," he insisted, reaching out for her. "We'll save them." For a moment, Rebecca hesitated, glancing between the trembling, haunted version of her brother and the ominous shadows closing in. Could she trust him? "I can't leave you," she shouted, the dread mounting as she considered the encroaching darkness. "Trust me," he pleaded, and something deep within her resonated with the urgency of his voice, as if a primal instinct stirred and pushed her forward. She sprinted alongside him, jumping over the roots and debris, urgency pushing them forward. Laughter rose in a cacophony, a sinister echo against their fearful strides, like a tide of malice ready to consume them. "Here." Jake pointed to a flimsy structure hidden beneath the thick growth, its shape reminiscent of a playhouse ruined but still standing. Where did it lead? What lay beyond the threshold? Whatever waited would surely not be friendly. As they rushed inside, Rebecca caught the faint echo of footsteps behind them. Something dark was hot on their tails, and its breath was rancid with malevolence. "Close the door," Jake urged as he swept inside. Heart pounding, she obeyed, feeling the wood shudder against something powerful and hungry on the other side. They huddled together in the stifling air, the muffled laughter now morphing into vicious screeches. She could feel the walls vibrating with the creature's rage as it sought entrance. But could they really hide forever? Rebecca was losing track of time, of hope, of anything to hold on to. "Rebecca, are you there?" Jake whispered, his voice trembling again. "Do you think anyone is left?" How could she answer when doubt consumed her? They were in a nightmare woven out of lost dreams, and just outside, horrors danced and prowled what awaited them in the pitch-black beyond. A soft thudding began, rhythmic and deliberate. Fingers scraped against the wood in a terrible melody, and she knew, deep down, they wouldn't be safe for long. "Jake," she murmured, "I don't know how this ends," but then came a flash of light from outside, too bright against the darkness. Shadows fluttered, and for the first time, Rebecca felt a thread of hope. Maybe it was a chance to escape. But whose light was it? The question loomed larger than any terror she had faced yet, and time was slipping away. A blinding flash illuminated the cramped space like a thunderbolt, revealing spider webs swaying in the corners. It startled Rebecca, sending a jolt through her body. She squinted, trying to see through the blur. The air buzzed with a strange energy, and that thudding resumed, louder and more frantic. "Jake!" she hissed, fear twisting her voice. "Do you see that?" He pressed closer, eyes wide. "What is it?" Can you tell? The flickering light from outside danced erratically, casting unsettling shadows. But as she looked, panic washed over her. The source of the light didn't seem friendly, it flickered and bobbed wildly, resembling a head rather than a lamp. "Who's there?" she called, her voice barely above a whisper. The laughter in the woods quieted for a heartbeat, then erupted, mocking and malicious. The sound gripped her with icy fingers. Jake trembled beside her, the bravado crumbling under their shared dread. They were trapped, and whatever was lurking outside had just turned its attention toward them. The thudding turned to a pounding. Something heavy pressed against the door, rattling the wooden frame viciously. "We can't stay," Jake urged, edging toward the back of the playhouse. "There has to be another way out." Rebecca's heart raced, and her breath quickened. "But, where do we go?" The laughter outside twisted into a sinister chant, rising in intensity. "Come play with us forever." Her stomach soured, and that primal instinct to run overwhelmed her. "Go now!" she shouted, fear mandating her command. Jake glanced at her, terror etched across his face. "Together or not at all?" "Now!" The door vibrated, wood splintering under unseen pressure. Jake lunged for a rusted window in the back. "Help me!" Blindly, Rebecca ran to him, throwing her weight against the creaky frame. The laughter exploded outside, making it almost impossible to think. But with the pounding getting louder, they had no time to think. Together, they pushed the window open, the hinges screeching like a wounded animal. "Out!" she urged, climbing up onto the sill. One shaky foot after the other swung free into the bramble. She gasped as she felt the cool air wash over her. "Go, Jake!" she yelled, bracing against the space as he squeezed through. Just as he landed beside her, the door burst open behind them. A mass of darkness poured into the structure, twisting and clawing, shadows writhing like living smoke. "Run!" Jake pulled her forward, and they plunged into the thick undergrowth, branches smacking against their skin as they tore through the woods. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown to impending doom. The laughter chased them, now a cacophony of despair and fury. Rebecca glanced over her shoulder, shadows spilled from the ruined playhouse like ink, undulating and chasing with unholy speed. They were not alone. "Do you hear that?" Jake gasped, skirting a tree trunk. "What?" she panted, lungs burning. The others!" he shouted, pointing. Ahead, flickering within the trees, she saw movement, small forms swaying, shadows just like their attackers but not quite right. Children. Their faces were ghostly, eyes hollowed out with indifference, their mouths twisted into sickening grins. "Jake!" she screamed, a chill racing down her spine. "We can't go that way." But Jake was already sprinting toward them. "They must be the ones," he cried, desperation fueling his steps. "They can help us." Rebecca hesitated, doubt clawing at her. "No." There, but the shadows closed in around them, thickening the air with an atmosphere of dread. She could feel it wrapping around her throat, squeezing the breath from her body. The laughter crescendoed behind them, a deafening roar demanding their compliance. "Jake, wait!" But he didn't. He dashed forward, arms reaching toward the lost children. Just as he approached, darkness engulfed him, a swirling void that swallowed his scream. "Jake!" Her voice cracked, terror flooding her. She felt paralyzed, caught between two terrors, the lunacy of abandoning her brother and the dread of being caught by the others. The laughter burst into manic joy. They had him. "Come home, Rebecca." Their voices rang through the trees, each word like a blade twisting deeper. Just like Jake. Rebecca turned on her heel, every instinct screaming at her to flee. Heart racing, she bolted in the opposite direction, abandoning the laughter, abandoning Jake. Determination surged through her as she rushed further into the woods, branches slashing at her like veils of punishment. How could she escape when nothing was certain? But the light from before suddenly flickered in her periphery, revisiting her hope. Who or what was it, and could it save her before the shadows consumed her completely? Time slipped away faster than she could run. What was waiting at the edge of the dark? And could she trust it, not knowing whether it belonged to her savior or doom? Rebecca stumbled through the thick undergrowth, her breath coming in sharp gasps as she fought to keep from tripping over the roots that seemed to claw at her feet. Each rustle in the leaves sent fresh bursts of adrenaline through her veins. The chill of the night seeped into her bones, but the sweat on her skin felt hot and clammy. She dared not look back. Every instinct told her that the darkness was still following, and every flicker of her heartbeat reminded her of Jake's haunting call just moments before. The light shone again, more vibrant this time, flickering defiantly against the oppressive gloom that surrounded her. It beckoned. The resolve to chase it warred with the dread of what hunted her. What if it was another trap, another lie spun by shadowy forms who thrived on despair? And yet, the thought of returning to the haunting laughter drove her forward. She hadn't been running long when the light split the darkness, opening to a wide, moonlit clearing. For a moment, she hesitated, squinting against the brightness that almost stung her eyes. The air was quieter here, as if the forest had chosen to hold its breath, awaiting her next move. A part of her wanted to scream out for Jake, but she swallowed it down, afraid that her voice would summon the remnants of laughter waiting just beyond the trees. The shadows seemed to flirt with the edges of the clearing. Each gnarled root and stone felt like malicious eyes, watching her, weighing her soul. But then she noticed the source of the light, a weathered lantern sitting atop a decrepit barrel. Dust danced around it in the pale glow, giving it an ethereal feel. Heart pounding, she approached it slowly, her senses on high alert. As Rebecca reached out, she noticed a familiar face reflected in the glass. Her heart dropped. No, it wasn't Jake, but the ghostly faces of the children from before. Hollow eyes and twisted, mirthless grins stared back at her, flecked with the sadness of abandonment. They were trapped in the light, too, perhaps as a warning, as if to tell her that escaping was not as easy as it seemed. "Some don't make it out here," a voice echoed from the shadows, cold and soft like the wind cutting through the trees. "But you can join us." Rebecca spun around, scanning the tree-line, searching for the origin of that voice. Her pulse quickened as she spotted a figure in the darkness, one of the lost children, its head cocked to one side, eyes gleaming with that same sickening glow. The child took a slight step forward, and every instinct in Rebecca screamed to run, but she couldn't move, transfixed by the figure's unnatural presence. "Look closer," the entity whispered, a chill caressing her neck. "It's not what you think." As the figure emerged partially from the shadows, Rebecca could see it more clearly. Its face, once resembling a child, was now distorted, a melding of glee and sorrow. "We don't just play," it continued, its voice twisting into a sing-song chant. "We never leave. We beckon others to join. We play to keep ourselves alive." Fear gripped her heart like a vice. "You're not real," she breathed, backpedaling toward the lantern. "You're just part of the darkness." The laughter erupted again, a symphony of voices, swirling and echoing through the clearing, saturating her with dread. "You think you're different? You're just like us, Rebecca. You'll play forever." With that realization crashing over her, she felt panic surge in her throat like bile. Focusing on the lantern, she grabbed it, hoping its light would ward off whatever cursed aura these wretched beings were spreading. But the moment she touched it, a wave of shadows rushed toward her, a tidal force of dark intent. "The light won't save you," they hissed, and Rebecca felt the very essence of the forest press in around her, suffocating. A flicker of defiance ignited within her. Just as the shadows lunged to claim her, she swung the lantern toward them. "Stay back. I will fight." As bright light burst forth, pushing back the shadows, she could sense their deep shrieks of fury. But Rebecca knew this was just a temporary defense. She needed to escape this dreadful trap, to find Jake, and to uncover the truth. But who else was waiting in this haunting theater of the night? What lay beyond the light she held? As Rebecca turned, ready to forge ahead through the dark once more, a figure loomed behind her. "Ready to play?" it said softly, and in that instant, all hope of safety slipped away. Rebecca's heart raced as she whirled around, the lantern flickering wildly as her hand shook. The figure stood cloaked in shadows, its face obscured yet oddly familiar. The laughter still echoed in her ears, spinning through her mind like a sinister lullaby. "Who are you?" she shouted, her voice cracking as panic clawed at her throat. The child grinned wider, lips curled up in a way that felt almost wrong. "You don't remember me, do you?" The voice was sweet, yet underlined with a bone-chilling malice. "I don't have time for this," she began, but the moment the words left her mouth, the clearing trembled. The trees shifted as if alive, closing in, tightening their grip on her. "Time? Oh, sweet Rebecca, time doesn't exist here. It's a game we play." The figure took a step forward, the darkness retreating slightly, revealing a tattered dress, frayed at the edges. "You wanted to see your friend again, didn't you?" A shiver shot down her spine. "Jake." In that instant, the world felt impossibly small. "What did you do to him?" The silence hung heavy, pregnant with dread, until the child's grin transformed into a frown of disappointment. "You'll find him if you play the game," it taunted, stepping back, allowing full shadows to fall in behind it. A faint whispering, almost like rustling leaves, filled the air. Clenching the lantern, Rebecca began to back away, realizing she was surrounded. The shadows coalesced, forming twisted shapes, almost humanoid but grotesque in their eeriness. They hovered near the edges of the clearing, eyes gleaming in the lantern's light, hungry for something she could not give. "Join us, Rebecca. Stay and play." The child's voice rose to a sing-song pitch, echoing in her mind. Forever with that, the shadows lunged, and she felt a rush of icy breath against her skin. In a panic, she swung the lantern again, the light spilling forth. For a moment, the shadows shrieked, retreating fluidly, as if the light could truly harm them. But it wouldn't last. "Let him go," she screamed, desperation rising like bile. "Stay with us." They hissed back, their whispers growing louder, merging into a cacophony that rattled her bone. "You're one of us now." The lantern flickered once more, its glow waning dangerously. She could see beyond the clearing. Dark trees stood like sentinels in the distance, and in that open space lay something darkly shimmering, a haunting silhouette of what could only be Jake. No! She couldn't believe it. "Jake!" she shouted, pushing past the creeping dread that threatened to suffocate her. "Help!" The word came out as a choked cry. His figure seemed trapped in a haze, unseen hands pulling him deeper into the maw of darkness behind those trees. But Rebecca hesitated, a thumping heart against a frigid pulse of fear. What if it was yet another trick? What if he was already lost, unable to return? The laughter echoed again, this time mocking, a taunt that stung her with each ripple. "Do you want to join the fun? Or will you leave him to the shadows? Choose, Rebecca." With the flickering light losing its strength and the shadows creeping ever closer, her body felt heavy with dread, but her spirit flickered with something else. A sliver of determination pushed through her fear. "I want to play your game," she shouted back, desperation turning into courage. The shadows recoiled for a moment, and she seized the opportunity, sprinting toward the figure of Jake, the lantern guiding her but the heartbeat of the woods pounding against her ears. But as she took each step, she felt the ground shift beneath her, the laughter crescendoing as the darkness formed a living labyrinth. "Rebecca!" Jake cried out again, his figure wavering like a mirage. She reached out, feeling the coolness of the air thicken around them, uncertain if the warmth of his voice was real. "I'm coming!" she yelled, but the shadows were too powerful. They whispered promises of eternal play, taunts of her inevitable descent. Just as hope began to slip from her grasp, Rebecca broke through, a mere breath away from Jake, when darkness enveloped her vision, and the last thing she heard was the echoing laughter that whispered game on. But was she ready to lose everything? A choice loomed before her, one that could lead to salvation or doom. Can she break free, or would she, too, become part of their terrifying game? The world melted into blackness as Rebecca was swallowed by a void. The laughter twisted around her like chains, binding her to the darkness that pulsed with life. She stumbled, the ground beneath her feeling strange and soft, like matted grass. Her lungs burned, and she gasped for air, but it tasted stale and whole, as if it had long since been tainted with dread. "Jake," she screamed into the emptiness. The sound of her voice faded quickly, swallowed by the yawning silence that pressed in from all sides. An explosion of cold lost hope clawed at her insides. What if she had made a terrible mistake by rejecting the game? A voice licked at her subconscious, mocking her fears. "What's wrong, Rebecca? Afraid of a little fun?" She blinked rapidly, willing her vision to adjust to the darkness. In her mind, she saw flashes of Jake, his wide eyes, and the desperation in his voice. Help! He needed her. But where was he? Would she find him among the echoes of the laughter? Suddenly, a flicker of light drew her gaze. Fear set in, but she followed its glow. It flickered like the dying light of her lantern, beckoning her, promising safety or maybe something worse. As she moved closer, the shadows seemed to stretch and writhe, flicking out toward her with long, claw-like fingers. "I wish you hadn't come here," Rebecca, the child's voice danced like wind through the trees, chilling her to the bone. "We were having so much fun." She pressed on, steeling herself against panic. The light revealed a narrow path, the ground brimming with gnarly roots and crumbling leaves. As she stepped onto it, an uneasy feeling gnawed at her stomach. The whispers of the dark surrounding her pressed close, wrapping tightly around her thoughts. "Can't you hear us? Don't you want to join us?" They chanted, a symphony of tones weaving in and out of her mind. "Where's Jake?" she called back, her voice trembling. She fought back the creeping dread that pressed against her like an iron weight. "What do you want from us?" The shadows giggled, thickening. "Want? Oh, dear Rebecca, it's simple. We want you to play." A tremor of energy pulsed through the ground, and from the shadows, forms began to emerge. Clay-colored figures, their features twisted in nightmarish glee, stepped forward, reaching out with elongated fingers. In that moment, she felt the hair on the back of her neck stand on end, every instinct screaming at her to run. She sprinted down the path, but the laughter only grew louder, shaking the very air around her, drowning out her thoughts. She fled, but the branches snagged at her clothes, trying to pull her back into their clutches. "Jake!" She cried out again, her voice cracking. As if responding to her plea, the shadows faded for a fleeting second, and there, ahead in the distance, she saw the outline of him. But as she sprinted toward his figure, light and dark battled around her. The forest shifted, the trees weren't just trees anymore, they were twisted specters, their branches writhing in anger. "No! Rebecca!" Jake's voice echoed, frantic. Just as she reached out for him, a shadow leaped from behind a tree, fangs bared. The hatred in its eyes shot through her like ice water. "Did you think you could leave?" it hissed, closing in. Rebecca stumbled back, gasping in shock as the darkness seemed to wrap around her consciousness. The last thing she heard was the child's laughter mixing with Jake's terrified cries. Game over. And then everything exploded into blinding white light, leaving her suspended in a void, teetering on the edge of reality. When the brightness faded, Rebecca found herself alone. She was lying on the cold ground beneath the darkening sky. The trees stood still, casting long shadows that elongated toward her, whispering in a language she couldn't understand. "Jake?" she called, her voice trembling, uncertainty gnawing at her mind. Instinctually, she felt the weight of unseen eyes watching her, judging her with an unsettling hunger. Was this truly the end? Or just another beginning in the game she never wanted to play? A rustle behind her made her turn. Sharply. Something moved in the curtain of dark trees, and the child's laughter rang out once more, echoing into infinity. Ready for round two? The question hung in the air, heavy with dread, as Rebecca's heart raced. What would she do now, face the shadows or plunge deeper into the unknown? Rebecca stood frozen, the laughter fading into a hollow echo that seemed to linger in her bones. Was this real? Had she escaped the grip of the forest, or was this just another layer of the game? She pushed herself to her feet, heart pounding, adrenaline surging. Determination coursed through her veins. She would find Jake. Jake! She called again, her voice shaking but insistent. The trees swayed softly, almost mockingly. I'm coming for you. She took a tentative step forward, the weight of her fear lifting slightly with each motion. The air felt different here. It was colder, but there was a strange sense of stillness, no sinister whispers, no laughter. As if the forest was holding its breath, waiting. Rebecca dared to hope. Then she spotted it, a glimmer through the trees, a faint flickering glow that resembled her lantern, distant but unmistakable. Could it be? She raced toward it, moving faster, almost tripping over unseen roots as excitement bubbled within her. Jake! She called again, desperation weaving through her voice. I'm here, I'm coming. Even the shadows around her seemed to retreat slightly, perhaps this was her chance. She squeezed between thick trunks, the glow growing brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. With every step, hope ignited, and she was filled with a fierce resolve. Then, bursting into a clearing, she gasped. In the center stood Jake, unscathed, the light shining brightly around him, illuminating the area. Relief washed over her like a flood. Jake! She shouted, tears of joy and exhaustion clinging to her lashes. Rebecca! He echoed, a mixture of relief and fear on his face. He ran to her, wrapping his arms tightly around her. She held him close, feeling the warmth of his body and the blood racing through his veins, a reminder of life. They weren't lost yet. We need to get out of here, he said urgently, the shadows lingering just beyond the circle of light. They're coming. I know, she replied, feeling her strength returning. But we can't let them take you again. We have to stick together. The flickering light pulsed as if in agreement, illuminating their path. Taking his hand, Rebecca led the way. They moved cautiously, every footstep a reminder of the terror they had just escaped. But as they navigated the trees, the darkness shifted, clawing at the edges of their sanctuary. Shadows whispered, echoing malicious laughter as if mocking their escape. Then, just as they reached the edge of the clearing, a figure emerged from the darkness. Tom, the smiling counselor, eyes gleaming with a predatory glint. Well, look who decided to play, he said smoothly, voice oozing with false cheer. Tom, you're part of this? Jake stammered, the light flickering ominously. The realization struck Rebecca like a blow. The stories had all been true. He was one of the ones feeding the darkness. Playtime was always meant to be shared, Tom replied, his smile freezing her heart. But like all games, this one has rules. What are you talking about? Rebecca spat, fear threatening to choke her. We're not playing your game anymore. Ah, but you already are, he replied with a sickeningly sweet grin. You just don't realize it. You'll join us, it's inevitable. Something inside Rebecca snapped. No! She shouted, feeling a surge of bravery. We will not become part of your nightmare. Iron resolve took hold as she stepped forward, Jake beside her, ready to confront the darkness head-on. The shadows thrummed, their energy threatening to consume them, but Rebecca's heart surged with defiance. I'm not afraid of you. In that moment, the lantern's light burst forth, illuminating Tom and the shadows swirling around him. What? No! He shouted, recoiling as the brilliance chased away the darkness. "This ends now," Rebecca shouted again, channeling every ounce of love for Jake, every ounce of fury against what they had faced. She lifted the lantern high, the blaze kindling the forest around them. The shadows writhed, twisting and howling a cacophony of despair as they attempted to flee from the light. "Stay back!" he screamed, but the darkness evaporated before her eyes. With one final, mighty surge of energy, the light expanded, illuminating the night, cleansing it of the darkness that had stained it for too long. Tom roared with rage as the shadows constricted, shrieking like the fading echoes of lost souls engulfed in the brilliance. And then it was over. The forest fell silent, the air still, as if holding its breath in the wake of the storm. The dawn began to break, soft, golden hues filtered through the trees, chasing out the lingering shadows. "Rebecca?" Jake whispered, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "We did it," she breathed, relief washing over her. "It's over." Together, they stepped toward the light, crossing the threshold into a world that felt whole once more. The weight that had pressed upon them for so long lifted, replaced by warmth and hope. As they emerged from the trees, the shadows retreated, the memories of terror dissolving into mist. The camp lay in the distance, a vision of normalcy, the laughter of children ringing in the air once more. "Let us go home," Rebecca said, squeezing Jake's hand. They walked away, leaving the darkness behind, a chapter closed, a new story beginning. And with every step away from that haunted place, Rebecca felt lightness filling her soul, reassured by the fact that she had faced the darkness and triumphed. They may have changed, but some things remain strong: love, courage, and the enduring light that outshines even the strongest shadows. Now, I need you to act fast. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this chilling conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing ending. True fans know how important it is to support the channel through these actions.